I never thought I'd end up living in a nightmare that started with something as simple as a Craigslist ad. I'd been looking for a cheap apartment in the city for months, combing through listing after listing, getting my hopes up and crushed in equal measure. Then, one rainy evening, I stumbled upon it, a small studio apartment in a part of town I didn't know well, posted by a landlord who seemed too eager to rent it out. The photos were minimal, just a single grainy image of a room with peeling wallpaper and a cracked window, but the rent was low, almost suspiciously so. The description was short and blunt. Quiet place, no problems. Move in tomorrow if you want. I figured I'd check it out. I'd been living in a cramped room with 3 other people who smoked indoors and never paid rent on time, and this seemed like a chance to finally have my own space. I emailed the landlord, and within an hour, he responded, "Great. Come by tonight at 7. I didn't think much of it when he gave me only an address and no further instructions. By the time I got there, night had fully fallen, and the street was deserted. The building was old brick and looked like it had been abandoned for years, but the lights in the windows told me someone lived there. I hesitated, checking my phone for signal full bars, and debated leaving, but the thought of a private apartment nudged me forward. I knocked, and after a few moments, the door creaked open. He was taller than I expected, wearing a long coat that looked slightly too heavy for the mild spring weather. His face was sharp, with pale skin and dark eyes that seemed almost black in the dim light. "You're here for the apartment?" he asked, his voice calm, neutral. "Yes, I'm Alex." He nodded, stepping aside. "Come in. It's upstairs." The building smelled like damp wood and something else. I couldn't identify. Old books, maybe, or rotting fabric. I followed him up a narrow staircase, the steps creaking under my weight. The walls were lined with faded wallpaper in colors I couldn't name. At the top, a faint draft blew across my face from a window that didn't seem to open. The apartment itself was small, almost claustrophobic. A single window let in faint moonlight, casting shadows across the room. The walls were a dull gray, peeling in corners, and the floorboards were warped and uneven. "It's cheap because it's unusual," he said. I didn't ask what he meant. I was just happy to have a place to sleep alone. I moved in that night, dragging my small suitcase up the steps and setting it in the corner. The apartment felt off in a way I couldn't explain, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something, but I shrugged it off. I'd been alone before. I could handle it. The first few days were uneventful. I unpacked, cleaned, and tried to settle into a routine. But then I noticed the noises. At first, it was subtle, a scratching sound in the walls, soft enough that I thought it was just a building settling. But soon, it became more distinct. Footsteps at night, always pacing just outside my door, slow and deliberate. I asked the landlord if he had any idea what it could be. He just smiled. "Old buildings make noises. You'll get used to it." I didn't get used to it. By the 3rd week, the noises were accompanied by something else. Objects in my apartment began to move. Not drastically. Nothing like a poltergeist flipping furniture over, but subtle things. My keys on the counter would be in a different spot than I left them. My notebook would be open on a page I hadn't written. Pens would roll off the table as if nudged. I convinced myself I was just tired, or maybe I'd misplaced things. But the scratching in the walls? That never stopped. Then I saw it. I woke up one night to the feeling of being watched. The room was dark except for the sliver of light coming through the window. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but then I saw a shadow move across the floor, tall, thin, and impossibly fast. It stopped near the edge of the room, just standing there, and then it vanished. My heart pounded, but when I turned on the light, there was nothing. I tried to leave the apartment, but something felt wrong. Every time I stepped outside, the street seemed different. Shadows lingered longer than they should, and the building across from mine appeared taller than it had the day before, like it was leaning closer. Even street signs seemed distorted, the letters blurred as if someone had smeared them. I would shake my head, telling myself I was imagining things. Stress, maybe. Isolation. But the feeling of being watched only grew stronger. A week later, I found a note slipped under my door. It was written in messy, almost childlike handwriting. "Don't look behind you." I froze. My apartment door was locked. I was alone. My phone had no messages. And yet, the note was there. I wanted to leave immediately, But when I tried, the building seemed to shift. The hallways were longer, darker, and the exit at the bottom of the stairs was gone. I ran back to my apartment, locking the door behind me, and sat on the floor in the corner, clutching my knees. That's when I heard it again, footsteps, pacing, circling my door. Slow, methodical. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. By the 4th night, I started talking to it, out loud. "What do you want?" I whispered, my voice trembling. No response, just the scratching, the pacing. Then came a sound I'll never forget. A voice, low and rasping, almost a whisper, coming from inside the walls. "Leave." I told it I couldn't. My life, my work, everything tied me here. It didn't answer. It just scratched, moving faster now, like it was frustrated. I started noticing more changes. My reflection in the mirror would linger a moment longer than it should. And sometimes, it wouldn't move when I moved. Shadows in the room stretched, leaning toward me. Doors I hadn't touched would creak open slowly, revealing nothing, yet everything. Occasionally, I would see faint handprints pressed against the inside of my windows at night, though the glass was clean, and outside no one was there. And then I found the pictures. They were taped to the walls behind the peeling wallpaper, hundreds of them. Photos of me, from angles I didn't recognize. Taken when I was asleep, in the kitchen, even once outside the building. I didn't know how they got there, but I knew this wasn't random. Someone or something was obsessed with me. I confronted the landlord. He didn't flinch. He didn't deny it. He just said, "It's part of the place. You agreed to it when you moved in. Everyone who lives here changes." "Changes how?" I asked, panic rising. "You'll see," he said. The next night, I woke to a cold breeze and the feeling of hands on my shoulders. I spun around. Nothing. But when I looked in the mirror, my reflection smiled at me and I wasn't smiling. I grabbed my bag and ran. Down the hallway, the stairwell stretched impossibly far. I ran for what felt like hours, yet the street never came. Finally, I collapsed in the lobby, gasping. The landlord stood there, waiting, as calm as ever. "You can leave," he said, "but it will follow you. You'll never be alone." I ran. I didn't look back. But even now, months later, I feel it. In my apartment, my office, even when I step outside. The eyes in the walls, the shadows that linger, the faint scratching that I sometimes hear through vents or under floorboards. And I know, deep down, that the note was right. I shouldn't have looked. Because now, wherever I go, it's behind me, watching, waiting.